The rain fell in quiet sheets that night, its soft percussion against the window panes, echoing the turbulence inside James's chest. The room was dimly lit, a single lamp in the corner throwing shadows that stretched and curled like watchful spirits across the walls. He sat there, his hands trembling against his knees, as though they were no longer his to control. Every second that passed pressed on him with the weight of inevitability, and he could not decide if he wanted the moment to stretch, endlessly or end immediately. Then she moved, slowly, deliberately. Elena. Her very name was a paradox to him, carrying both comfort and terror. She stood in front of him, her face unreadable, her breathing calm, yet her fingers fumbled slightly as they reached behind her. The sound of fabric loosening was deafening to James, louder than the thunder outside, louder than the pounding in his chest. She was untying her dress. His throat tightened, and for a moment, he thought his heart had stopped. He should have looked away, should have asked her to stop, but instead he sat frozen, caught between fear and longing, between desire and dread. The first time he had seen Elena, he had known she was unlike anyone he had ever met, not because of her beauty, though her beauty was undeniable, but because of the way her presence demanded attention, without words. She had an aura of mystery, a heaviness in her eyes that seemed to speak of untold stories and unhealed wounds. James had always been drawn to brokenness, perhaps because he saw it as a mirror of himself. But now, as her dress slipped from her shoulders and fell softly to the floor, he realized he had stepped into something far beyond his understanding. The silence that followed was not empty. It was charged, as though the room itself had been holding its breath. He wanted to say something, anything to break the spell, but no words came. Instead, his hands trembled even harder, as though some unseen force was pushing against him, warning him that what was about to unfold could never be undone. "Elena," he whispered, his voice cracking, but she did not answer. She only looked at him, her eyes burning with something he could not name. It wasn't seduction. It wasn't innocence either. It was a storm, a quiet tempest that seemed to pull him deeper into its center. He remembered the first time she had touched his hand, how cold her skin had felt, how the chill had crept up his arm and lingered long after she had let go. It was the same chill that now gripped him, though the room was warm. He swallowed hard, trying to convince himself that this was just human closeness, just vulnerability, just the intimacy he had always craved. Yet something inside him screamed otherwise. As she stepped closer, the shadows seemed to shift with her, growing longer, darker, swallowing the light around them. James felt himself shrinking inside, a child again in the presence of something vast and unexplainable. He wanted to reach out, to steady her, to ask why she was doing this. But his body betrayed him, his fingers twitching useless, while his lips only managed another broken whisper. "God help me." For the first time, he realized the words weren't a prayer of resistance, but of fear, of desperate hope that what was unfolding was not what he thought it was. And then, with the dress pulled silently at her feet, Elena smiled. It wasn't the smile of a lover, nor the tender smile of trust. It was something else, thin, sharp, as if carved onto her face by invisible hands. James shivered. The rain outside grew heavier, a sudden wind rattling the window. He felt as though the house itself had shifted, groaning under the pressure of something unseen. That smile told him everything his mind had been trying to deny. He was not just in the presence of a woman. He was standing at the edge of something ancient, something dangerous. That night was not about love. It was about revelation. And though James could not yet see it clearly, he knew, deep down, that his life was about to be divided into two parts. Before Elena untied her dress, and after. The lamp flickered as though the air itself had thickened, pressing down on the light, drowning it in unseen waves. James remained frozen, his body stiff, his mind racing with questions he dared not ask aloud. Elena stood tall, her eyes fixed on him, her pale skin glowing unnaturally in the dimness. He should have turned away. He should have fled the room. But his legs refused him, and his voice was locked inside his throat. All he could hear was the thundering of his own heartbeat and the faint, almost imperceptible sound of whispering, though he knew neither of them had spoken. "Elena," He tried again, louder this time, though it still felt like a child's plea. Her smile widened just a fraction, but enough to send a chill crawling down his spine. It was then he noticed the air had grown cold, unnaturally so. His breath began to fog in front of him, and the rain outside had turned into a furious storm, lightning cracking across the sky as if the heavens themselves were bearing witness. He had always been a man of reason, skeptical of things unseen, but in that moment, reason abandoned him. All that remained was fear. Elena bent slowly, gracefully, picking up the discarded dress, but instead of putting it back on, she draped it across the chair as if it no longer belonged to her. Then she stepped closer to James. Each movement was deliberate, almost ritualistic. When she reached out her hand, he flinched, but could not pull away. Her fingers touched his cheek, ice cold, yet burning with an energy that felt alive. His vision blurred at the edges, the room tilting, the shadows swelling larger with every passing second. And then he heard it, clear this time. A voice, not hers, not his, but something else. A whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. He is mine. James's knees buckled and he fell forward, catching himself on trembling arms. God help me, he whispered again, this time a desperate cry from the depths of his soul. He tried to look up, but his eyes met hers. And in them he saw not just a woman, not even just a storm, but a chasm, an endless void filled with faces, screams, hands clawing at the edges of eternity. He gasped, pulling back, but Elena held him firm, her grip impossibly strong for someone so delicate. You asked for me, she said at last. Her voice calm, steady, but layered, as if 1,000 others spoke through her. He wanted to scream, to push her away, but his body betrayed him again. His chest ached, his breath shallow. He remembered the nights of loneliness, the prayers whispered into silence, the desperate longing for something beyond the emptiness of his life. And now, looking into her eyes, he realized his prayers had been answered, but not by God. No, this was something else, something that had heard his cries in the darkness and come not to comfort him, but to claim him. The storm outside roared louder, windows rattling, the walls creaking as though about to collapse. The whispering grew, voices overlapping, calling his name, dragging him deeper into their unseen grasp. He closed his eyes, tears spilling, and forced the only words he could muster, God, please, save me. For a moment the room shook violently, the lamp flickering until it finally went dark. He thought it was the end. He thought he had been consumed. But then the whispers stopped. Silence. James opened his eyes and Elena was gone. The storm had ceased, the rain now nothing more than a gentle drizzle. The dress still lay across the chair, but the air was empty, lighter, as if whatever had been there had vanished. Yet James knew it wasn't over. His hands still trembled, his body still shivered with the memory of her touch. And in the back of his mind, a single truth echoed, she would return. That night, James whispered, God help me, not as a passing plea, but as a covenant. He realized he stood at a crossroads, one path leading to salvation, the other into the arms of something dark and unrelenting. And though the room was empty, he felt her presence still, watching, waiting. If you've followed James's haunting journey this far, you know this is only the beginning, the unraveling silence, the chilling whispers, the unseen battle between light and darkness. It's a story that dives deep into the very soul. Don't miss what comes next, because each chapter takes you closer to the truth of who Elena is and what she wants. Subscribe now, stay with us, and let the story grip you until the very last breath.